Welcome to Abundance. You guessed it, a podcast dedicated to all things surrounding dance. I am Kristen.
And I am Hannah, and we are two best friends who are brought together by this art form.
Please join us in 5, 6, 7, 8.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. You are in for a special treat today. Hannah and I are actually together in the flesh for the first time in pretty much a year now. We're super excited to be together, and we've decided to take kind of a fun little spin on things, and we're bringing to you today some bar talk. So we've prepared questions for one another, things that we might not even really know about each other in terms of dance, and we're going to just have a little discussion and see where things take us.
Yeah, hey everyone, we're really excited for this episode because as my good pal Kristen said, we're actually together in person. So yay for that. Oh, it's so exciting. Okay, Kristen, I think is going to start off with the questions.
Sure thing, Han. So we'll keep it kind of simple to begin. What was your favorite live performance you've ever attended, or I guess favorite dancer you've seen perform?
I have many favorite performances, I think, but my favorite dancer is probably Sarah Burns, just from New York City Ballet, and she's just incredible. Like her athleticism and her performance quality and just everything about her. She just seems like such a nice human being too. But I love so many dancers too. It's hard to pick just one. But the cool thing about Sarah is she recently performed actually with Lori Belov and the Israel Duncan Company, like not too long ago, like a year ago. So that was really special. Also to see like a ballet dancer do, Duncan.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I would wish I could have met her at that point, but we were still in school.
So. Have you actually seen Sarah Burns perform live though? Have you seen her at Saratoga?
Yep, I saw her.
SPAC?
Yep, I saw her at SPAC, and then I also saw her when I went to New York City, and I saw some live performances as well. But she's probably my favorite.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this is such a hard question. Like I said, we're gonna start with something easy, but it's just so hard to choose.
There's so many beautiful dancers.
Yeah, no, totally. I think for me, my favorite performance I've ever seen was actually the Royal Ballet performing Sleeping Beauty. I got to see that freshman year when I went abroad for that week during spring break. And
was that the Tyler Peck performance? Or when you saw Tyler Peck?
Yes, that was. That's funny story, actually. Yeah, I guess I have to share this now. So my friends Stacy, Jenna, and I, we got tickets and saw, like I said, the Royal Ballet perform. And we actually didn't even sit together for the show. We bought the tickets kind of so last minute that we were each seated in totally different sections in the theater, but we really didn't care. We were like, we're here in London. We can't really say no to this opportunity. So we were actually running late to the show. We were out doing other touristy things. We only had so much time in London. And we got, I think, a little bit lost, maybe taking the tube to see the show. And we literally had to run through the streets of London. We took off our heels. We were in dresses and high heels for seeing our performance. And all day we knew that Tyler Peck was in London. And I had really wanted to go to the Freed store. And ironically, other people from our school ended up running into Tyler Peck at the Freed store. But the group of friends I was hanging out with didn't really want to go there. They wanted to do other things. So I was kind of bummed all day. I really wanted to meet Tyler Peck and was jealous of everyone else. And then our friend Stacy was like, maybe we'll see her at the show. And I was like, oh, come on. There's going to be how many people at this theater and seeing this performance? It just sounded really kind of ridiculous to me in the moment. And so we arrived to the show, and I'm trying to pull up the tickets real quick on my phone. Literally, it's about to start in like 2 minutes. And we're standing in line at the ticket booth, and literally Tyler Peck's standing right in front of us in line. And Stacy's like, Kristen, I think that's Tyler Peck in front of us, like whispering. but like Tyler heard and she turned around and just like smiled and waved and she was like, yeah, hi, like it's me. And we were like, oh my gosh. And we were totally just fangirling. It was kind of awkward, but she was so sweet and she let us take photos with her. And then of course we did have to race and find our seats in time for the show. It was a very brief encounter, but that was something really cool. But that was definitely one of my favorite performances ever. I just love being able to see like international companies perform to begin with, and just the opera house is just absolutely stunning. There's just something very magical about that whole experience. And then I actually reached out to Stacey recently too to ask her. We saw this show in Pittsburgh during our time at Mercyhurst, and I could not remember the name of the company.
This was the one you wanted me to see, but I couldn't for some reason.
Yeah, I think you were out of town for the weekend, but a few of us saw the Deborah Kolker dance company. They're a Brazilian dance company. And we kind of went into the performance not really knowing much about them. And it was just absolutely breathtaking. It's so hard to even describe the experience, but it was just one of those things where like I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. It was just so mesmerizing. I did not want it to end. And normally too, I'm more of a ballet person and I really like going and seeing like the classics and the story ballets, but this performance was just so incredible. So yeah, those were probably my favorite two performances. But then I've also just in terms of like dancers, I really enjoyed watching Maria Kachikova perform. I saw her in Lincoln Center, not actually with ABT. I was supposed to see her with ABT in Don Quixote, but she got injured actually and couldn't perform that evening. But I saw her performing with San Francisco Ballet when they went on tour.
Casually a principal at ABT and San Fran.
Yeah, you know you've done something right when you're with two major companies like that. But she just, to me, she's so interesting. She's such a small human. She's so small, but she's just like, she really does just take up the stage, and just her movement quality too. She's just so fluid. It's incredible.
Yeah, going off of that, our friend Kate Duane and I, when we were at ABT's Summer Intensive the year before you and I went, we saw her in person. She was walking in front of us.
That's
and she's just tiny, like as you're saying, oh my gosh. And yeah, she's an incredible dancer and performer. I love, honestly, watching small dancers like take up space just in general. I think that's really admirable about them because, you know, you don't have the height or the legs necessarily, but yet you're performing as if you do.
Absolutely. So cool. No, I totally agree.
All right. Well, my next question is, what kind of food sustains you best to go to a dance class, rehearsal, or performance? It's a hard one.
Yeah. I was giving this one some thought, and honestly, I don't really have anything super specific. I think for me, it really depends on the day and what I'm feeling and what my body feels like it needs. And for every person, it's definitely a very individual thing. There is no set one size fits all kind of thing in terms of nutrition and what works for each person. I'd say lately I really like a banana with peanut butter, an apple with peanut butter before class, or making some like scrambled eggs and having some fruit or something that's sustainable and like gives me some protein. It's not just completely carbs, but also something not too heavy. I don't like eating a very heavy meal or very sugary or salty things, like just things that make you feel kind of lethargic. I don't like any of that right before a dance class or obviously like a performance or something like that. Not that that's been happening much lately for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's just a few staples that I kind of rely upon.
Yeah, I think it's important too. Like the reason why I asked this question is, as dancers, and we've talked about this a little bit in our other episodes, but making sure you're maintaining like a good, healthy diet so you can sustain your dancing is super important. And so for me, it's just interesting to hear, because I remember even in like, I think it was Dance Essentials with Miss Partouche, we talked about what she would eat. And I think she said that she would eat like a bowl of pasta before she would perform. Personally, I don't know if I could do that because as Kristen was saying, it's like kind of heavy, but It really does, like, it varies from person to person, but at the end of the day, you just wanna make sure that you're fueling yourself in order to get through something like a performance or a class that's really long and demanding of your body. And also just drinking lots of water. That's something that I have to always remind myself of.
Yeah, with that even too though, there's like some balance that needs to come into play with that because at least for me personally, if I drink too much water before a class or while I'm actually exercising, I have to go to the bathroom frequently or it kind of like sloshes around my
Oh,
stomach and
yeah.
I'll get like bad cramps if I drink too much. So it's kind of for me, and once again, it's different for every person, but I kind of have to pace myself and I like to, maybe have just like a few sips like between every couple exercises throughout bar and then maybe just like around Allegro time, like if we're talking about like a ballet class or something. And then I feel like after class is when I try to replenish more in terms of water, but I do try to be careful not to drink too much right before or during just because of how my body will kind of react to that.
Yeah, so it's just about knowing your body and what works. But, you know, the other day when Kristen was here, I was telling her how my calves are cramping so bad. Part of it is, and you told me today, that maybe it's because I'm dehydrated. So for me personally, I think I need to be drinking more water. And for some reason during the pandemic, it's been harder for me to get myself to do it. I think because I'm at home and I've just been like drinking water out of the sink instead of like a water bottle that I'm carrying around. But yeah, it really does vary from each person. With you don't need that much, but I feel like with me, I'm in need of it more now than I
Hmm.
did.
Yeah, and dehydration, like you're starting to say, is like not just in terms of cramping, but you can have so many other side effects from being dehydrated. So something to be really watchful about. And perhaps like if you're not feeling, yeah, as she sips water. Also just, if you're having kind of any strange like side effects or just not feeling great overall with your health, something basic like drinking water is something that you should like evaluate and ask yourself how much you're consuming and stuff, as that could be the simple answer to potentially multiple different issues.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy how water, you wouldn't think that it would solve problems, but it does.
Yeah,
Like even headaches,
yeah, absolutely.
All right, you want to ask another one? Another question?
Sure thing. So share with me, I'm oh so curious, one of your most embarrassing memories or like mistakes on stage specifically.
So I'm sure you remember this actually. I was thinking a lot about this the other day. So at Mercyhurst, there's this side modern company that we have that's called So More Dance Works with two of our modern professors at school. And this was the year before you got involved. So it was when we were performing at the Arts Museum in Erie. And while like it wasn't a full on performance, we didn't have an audience, but I still felt like it was kind of a performance because it was a dress rehearsal, and I completely slammed into this girl, and she and she was in so much pain, and I felt so bad. And of course it's just like me being clumsy Hannah, like maybe I didn't see her, but I felt so bad that I injured another dancer. And that's probably my most, I don't know, embarrassing and just tragic things that's happened to me on stage, because you never want to hurt anyone, and I just body slammed her.
Right. Yeah. No, it's tough because it's one thing when it just like involves yourself, but there's definitely, yeah, that added guilt when someone else is involved.
Yeah.
But things happen.
Things do happen. Mistakes happen. And luckily it wasn't, in this case, it wasn't a horrible injury. Like she was okay to perform the next day and everything, but still felt really bad. And then of course I've always had, as a kid, you go on stage and you forget choreography and you're just kind of standing there and you're like, hey mom, hey dad, like look at how cute I look. I definitely had those moments as a little kid growing up. Yeah, do you have anything in particular?
A couple popped into my memory. I've had a fair share, I feel like. Speaking of when I was younger, so the first year I performed in the Nutcracker, I was a little baby mouse. And I was 6 years old at the time, so excited. And I was the first mouse in line. So, like, I was the first one that was supposed to scurry on stage and lead the rest of the line. And the opening night, I ran on stage at the wrong time. And then I just like stood there and then I just like ran off because I made the wrong entrance. And I remember my godparents came to come see that performance, and years later, I remember them kind of retelling that of they saw me run on and it took them a second. They're like, wait, is that Kristen? And then they noticed I just ran right off. I mean, things like that happen with little kids all the time, but I really wish, honestly, that I had a video of that I could watch or something. It just sounds pretty comical to me. But in terms of like more recently, I have had a couple falls on stage, and I feel like falls are always just kind of embarrassing. Like, you just don't want to fall on stage. I remember freshman year during Brought Edges, I was Michaela Sprague's
I remember
Jungle
this.
piece.
Yep.
And so this was my first time ever performing as a freshman. So, you want to set a good impression for your next 4 years, like for the rest of your time at school. And this was my very first, it was once again opening night of my first performance for Mercyhurst. And first thing I do, I run out on stage for my entrance, try to, go up to fourth on point, and literally just wiped out. Ran in, went down, came right back up. I remember feeling really humiliated in the moment, just like I said, because I felt that pressure, like as a freshman, and also just being in other people's choreography pieces, which we touched upon in our episode where we focused on choreography. Like, you just don't want to let your choreographer down. You want their vision to come alive. So I felt really bad in that moment that I had like perhaps let her down or, ruined her piece. But in reality, there was still like 7 more minutes after that moment, or, there was the whole rest of the piece. But then I also had, which year was it? Junior year? Oh, it was freshman year as well. Oh my goodness. I think. I could be totally wrong. So I was performing in the core for Sleeping Beauty, and I just totally messed up during one of the performances, one of the patterns. There was a lot of repeating like circles and patterns, and for some reason I just mixed up the order in the moment, and I totally got out of my spot. And luckily the other dancers were able to be very adaptable in the moment and kind of like make it all work. But I was just so lost in that moment. I knew something went wrong, but I didn't know what went wrong. It just didn't click with the adrenaline and everything. And then I remember talking to Miss Partouche after the performance because she noticed it, and I just was so embarrassed. And luckily she was really sweet about it. But all I can say is when you make a really drastic mistake on stage like that, you'll never repeat it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a learning curve, I guess.
Yeah, and it's also just about getting up to, when you fall, just keep finishing the piece and like thinking about it afterwards. That's also a good thing, because you don't want to get all freaked out and then just stop dancing.
Oh, it's totally a mental thing, because like I said, that was literally the entrance of the piece. So I had the whole rest of the piece to go, and if you let yourself get too worked up about it in the moment, then
the rest of the piece doesn't have much of a
chance. So you have to stay mentally strong, for sure. And then when you get off stage, that's when people freak out, or if that happens, upset. You can be upset, but in that moment you gotta
keep going.
Yep, the show must go on.
Gotta keep dancing. Yeah, totally. Okay, my next question for you, I feel like I probably know this, but what's your favorite part of the ballet class?
Like my favorite exercise?
If you're talking about, you have bar work, and then you have Petit Allegro, Grand Allegro, Adagio.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what?
Definitely not Petit Allegro. That is my least favorite part of class. I have to admit, I'm a sucker for a good like bar. I love just the tradition of bar, and it just feels just like
routine
staple. Yeah, a staple in my life, a routine thing, gets me in the mindset. So I really do just enjoy bar overall, but my favorite part of class is probably a good like waltz from the corner. Mm-hmm. And on a better turning day, I do enjoy turning, but we all have those bad turning days too, where that's like the last thing I want to be doing as well, along with Petit Allegro. So I would say a good waltz. Yeah. What about you?
I really enjoy traveling, so probably a nice Grand Allegro that really can get you from point A to point B in a space. Now, of course, when you're in COVID world and you're dancing in your kitchen, you can't do that. But when you're in
Yeah.
a big studio, like it's so fun to travel and move, and it almost feels like, I mean, it sounds kind of cheesy. It's not like you're flying, but like when you're in the air jumping for a second, it's just the coolest feeling ever. And yeah, so it's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I do love a good ground allegro too, but I think maybe why it didn't even pop into my mind as quickly at first is just because, like you said, I just haven't been doing as much ground allegro lately. It's so it almost feels less of a part of class nowadays, but of course it's a very important component.
Yeah, it's kind of what you're preparing for, like the whole class.
Oh,
right?
it totally is.
Which is kind of weird too, because like we're now in class and in our like little spaces, and that's really not what we can do, as you keep, as we keep reiterating. It's just weird. Like you had a specific order how class went beginning to end, you kind of knew what was going to happen, and now everything is getting a little switched up. Sometimes you'll just take bar and you won't even have center anymore, depending on the class.
Yeah, I mean they try to emphasize for us within my program at NYU, specifically the ABT portion, to actually build your classes where you're starting with the Grand Allegro. So like from a teacher's perspective. So you decide what your Grand Allegro is going to be, and then you shape the rest of your class based off of that exercise. So that way you're making sure that you're kind of scaffolding your class and you're giving exercises that specifically are going to work the same muscles or build up to what you're going to be doing at the end. So it is interesting that, from a pedagogical standpoint, that's kind of how you should approach things, or how you could approach things, but yet that's like what's being cut for the most part right now. So
it's kind of a tease. Like you're learning how to do something that doesn't really apply right now.
Yeah, I mean, it applies to some extent, and obviously a lot more dancers are in person, whereas you and I are still doing things very much remote right now, but just depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. But I just mean in general, COVID times, we're not in a big studio with lots of people like we used to be. You know? It's just all very different.
Definitely. Going off of your question about, different exercises and parts of a ballet class, I'm curious, and this doesn't have to be for a ballet class, like this I guess could be applicable to like modern or just really any dance class. Like if you could only turn or jump for the rest of your career, so it's kind of one of these like, which would you rather? You gotta pick one. Yeah. Which would you choose?
That's a very...
And I know you like both of them, so that's why I'm curious.
I do. But I must say, if I was a better turner on my left side, maybe I would choose turning, but I think if I had to choose between the two, it would be jumping. Just because, again, going back to what I said previously about Grand Allegro, it's just fun to jump, and if I had to just pick one or the other, I think it would probably be that.
I know you liked both. I had a feeling you'd probably lean more towards that, but I was curious.
Yeah. It's a good question.
Learn something new every day.
What would you choose?
I would choose turning, but like disclaimer to that, I'm not an amazing turner. Like I'm not saying turning because I'm like a natural top that can do like 8 pirouettes. No, that's not the case.
Shout out to Michaela Frank if you're listening. Like that.
Yeah, some people just are literally born with the ability to turn. I'm not one of those people. I'm not saying I'm like a horrible turner, but I just don't have that natural ability. But I just really enjoy turning, and while we have bad turning days, I feel like if I was doing a lot of turning, like I'd improve upon it anyways, hopefully, in a perfect world. So, and it's not that I don't like to jump, but like I said, Petit Allegro is my least favorite part of class, and Petit Allegro is definitely in the category of jumping. So therefore, I would choose turning.
That's fair. I get that. Would you say, what about it that makes Petit Allegro not your favorite? Is it the stamina piece? Is it the beating? Is it reversing?
Like everything.
Just everything about
Literally everything.
I don't know if I knew that about you.
Yeah, I hate Petit Allegro.
Just everything.
We're just throwing that out there. I love ballet. I will do it. I will do Petit Allegro, but I don't enjoy it.
Kind of like
it's just the truth.
Eating the things that you don't like, but you know it's good for you. So
yeah, it's like medicine.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. All right. Well, my next question is, if you got to talk to someone in the dance field, who would it be and why? Like, it could be anyone. It doesn't have to be a dancer or teacher. It literally be anyone in the field.
Once again, that's such a tough one because it's just so
broad question.
so open-ended. But for me, it depends upon the scenario. At this current point in time, I would choose two different setups. If I was going to a coffee shop, I would meet with Catherine Morgan, and I would love to sit down with her and like have some real important conversations and honestly talk to her in terms of like making some radical change in the dance world. We'd sit down and we'd have business. Like it would be a business chat at a coffee shop.
You don't even like coffee.
Yeah, I mean, I would get like a tea or like a chai tea latte or a hot chocolate. It's fine.
Recently, we got peanut butter hot chocolate, or this, you got peanut butter hot chocolate, and it's bomb.
Really, really good.
People listening, get peanut butter hot chocolate if you can.
Little plug right there.
Yeah.
But if I was going to like a restaurant, maybe a nice restaurant in New York City, grabbing a drink, I would go with Isabella Boylston and James Whiteside. Yes, I'm choosing them as a pair, even if that wasn't part of the question. The Cindy's. I absolutely adore them and really look up to them. They're an inspiration to me. And I just think for like a good night out and just the two of them together, that not only would I have like questions for them and, you know, just want to get to know them more, but I feel like they would just be so fun to hang out with.
A good combo.
Yeah, really great combo. So we've got the two sides of the spectrum. I'd have my business chat with Catherine Morgan at a coffee shop, or I would go out to a nice restaurant, get some drinks and dinner with the Cindy's.
For those of you that don't know about Catherine Morgan, I would check out her
YouTube channel.
Yeah, or her Instagram. I mean, you can do that with James and Isabella too, and they're great. But Catherine's very motivational on her YouTube account, right? Like, I know you should speak more to it. But that's another great resource that I know I've benefited from. I know you have. So anyone listening, like, Catherine Morgan's great for advice and different things like that.
And she's also planning to start this kind of new arts organization that's very much in alignment with all the things she's been advocating for recently. So that's why I kind of say that I'd want to have more of like a business type discussion with her, because I really see her as not only an advocate within the dance field, but also almost a leader, and more so lately soon to be like entrepreneur within the dance field. So I'd really be curious just to hear some of her ideas and how she maybe plans to go about actually achieving certain things. Also, just side note too, James Whiteside, he's coming out with a book. So I'm really excited to eventually read that. I think it comes out in the summertime. So also check that out too.
Yes.
Lots of awesome things happening and lots of awesome people out there.
Yeah. Again, just like amazing people in the dance field.
Yeah.
So many wholesome,
and there's
awesome
so many more too. Like I said, that's all very circumstantial in terms of in this very moment. I think that those are the people that I would choose, but there's so many other incredible people out there that would be such an honor to meet up with. And yeah, you really can't just choose one. No, you can't choose one. Hence, I gave two answers. Yeah, and one of them two people. But how about you, Hannah?
Oh dear. As we're saying, that's really tough for me. But, if I had to choose one person, I would probably choose to talk to Michaela DePrince, because I think her story is really interesting. And again, like, she just seems like a very personable, nice individual, as well as an incredible dancer. Like, I would just be really interested to have a conversation and hear more about her life story from, like, literally just talking to her instead of like reading her book, which I did. I would love to just talk to her and learn more about how she deals with dancing, and even like her family life is different than I feel like most people's. Like, she was adopted, and it's just a very interesting story. I would really just love to learn more about her.
Did you know that I actually met her?
Did you meet her?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I didn't sit down and get to have dinner with her and talk to her like you would be proposing to do so. But Yeah, I performed in a like charity performance that she also performed in, and I met her backstage and got to take a photo with her.
Is she nice?
Oh yeah, she's so nice. I mean, I only briefly talked to her, and I was like an awkward 14-year-old who was just like fangirling with everyone else because she was in first position, and
she's a bit older, right, than us?
She's a few years older, yeah, but
like
she's
2 or
not
3.
that far in age from us. But yeah, she is also just a really amazing person, and I agree. She has a very interesting life story, and it would be someone really cool to talk to.
Yeah, like imagine starting dance, like starting your passion for dance in Sierra Leone. That is such a where dance isn't popular, but I think she got a magazine or something that she saw and she was inspired and she was like, I'm gonna be a ballerina. Like that's what I'm gonna do. And she did. Like she made that dream come true and she came to the States and look at where she is now. I don't know. It's just so inspirational. So that's why I want to talk to her.
Yeah, lots of cool stories out there.
Yeah.
People are just awesome.
I know. All right. My question for you now is why do you dance? Again, a broad question, but I think it's important, you know? I don't even know if I know this whole response, which is why I'm asking. I have an inkling of what you might say, but
Like why I dance now or why I started dance?
no, why do you want to do it as a career? Why did you do it in college? Why have you what keeps you going?
Yeah. I mean, I started dancing when I was 4. I mean, it's kind of a common thing. I mean, some people start later, but it's kind of common to start when you're a young kid.
Definitely like the classic little girls that always, I feel like so many girls do actually.
Yeah, and my parents actually put me in ballet because I would walk around the house, like around the time that I was just learning to walk, I would walk like crunched over on my toes. So like not healthy, not up on like a releve, like literally crunched over my toes. And I would, I'd do the classic, like I'd put my arms up and I'd just walk around like that all the time. And apparently I asked my parents when I was like 2 or so to start ballet. And then I think they waited just a little bit until I was a tad bit older. And then I started at age 4. But I thought it was interesting that it was something, I guess, that I kind of initiated, even though I don't remember that. Whereas most parents, I think, just like you said, it's kind of like stereotypical, like, oh, you have a little girl, just let's throw her in ballet. Like that's pretty typical, but I guess I took the initiative because we don't have any history of like dancers in my family or anything. My parents knew nothing about ballet or dance prior to me starting. So yeah, so that's how I originally started. And I always took it pretty seriously from a young age. And I guess that's kind of just part of me and like my personality. I'm kind of just like a serious person. Not always. I definitely am also very goofy and not serious, but do have a very serious side of me. And I always just really loved the discipline behind ballet. I loved the routine. I loved how precise it is, kind of all of the things that my type A kind of personality was just like gravitating towards all of these things. And it was just very fulfilling. And I was very shy growing up too. And so I was very quiet in school, but with dance or with ballet, like you don't have to talk. And so I also really enjoyed that component of it. And of course, performing and all of that, I just kind of fell in love with it all. But I mean, now it's at the point where I couldn't imagine my life without dance. I mean, when I was deciding what to do for college, for a while, I didn't see myself pursuing dance in college. I didn't really even know that that was an option. But then, kind of, when I found out that that existed, it totally changed my world. And I literally could not imagine myself doing anything else, even though I am a very passionate person and I have so many other interests. But yet, it would not make sense for me to be doing anything else. And I love the art form so much. And I think more and more people are realizing not just dance, but like how critical the arts are to just human society and how therapeutic they are and how much we actually do rely upon entertainment in our lives, especially even during these weird COVID times. It's like, it's the music, it's the art, the things that have come out of this all, like that we as humans crave. And I just love being a part of that all and being able to connect with other people within the art form, but also connecting with other people through your art. It's just a really cool, special thing. And I guess my decision over the last few years to really focus a lot on teaching too stems from wanting to kind of shape our next generation of not only dancers, but humans, because I feel like people don't always think about this, but teachers play such a large role in students' lives and shape them as individuals. They're role models for them. And I feel like I can have a voice through like nurturing the next generation of kids out there. Besides eventually one day being a parent, a teacher is just such a big, like I said, role model for kids. And I know my teachers had a big impact on me growing up, and I still really admire so many of them. And just dance gave me so much over the years that I want to give that back to other people.
Ooh, give me chills. That's such a sweet.
Such a ramble, my goodness.
Yeah,
but
that's cool. I didn't know all of that.
I don't know. I just
sharing.
Feel like this year has been such a hard year for everyone, and so many difficult subjects have arose where we really, as a society need to change things going forward. And I think it's easy sometimes to feel like you can't have an impact on this world in terms of inclusivity or just making the world a better place. And sometimes it really does feel like what you do doesn't matter. And I think that's why people sometimes don't try and don't put in the effort. But I feel like as a teacher, in this weird indirect way, I can be a part of making change. Yeah.
I like that.
Yep.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing, friend.
Sure thing, buddy. Do you want to share?
Oh, do I want to share why I dance?
Yeah.
Well, this is going to sound a bit cheesy, but I've always never felt more myself or more alive, if that makes sense, because it really is like expressing yourself in a way where it's not through words, but it's through movement. And in high school, that was always my outlet. So I just really fell in love with the art form, and going to college for it and learning even more about the history behind it and just getting exposed to other things and other styles and other people within the field and within our like dance department just opened my eyes up to more, and it made me just fall in love even more than I already did before that time. Kind of like what Kristen said, I think there's so much good that comes out of dance and art in general, and I want to help make a difference in the world, whether that's with my dancing or eventually if I do decide to do a little bit of teaching as well or choreographing or whatever. Art really does make the world more beautiful, and it can create change and make a difference. So that's kind of my whole like overarching spiel of why I dance and never want to stop dancing, quite frankly, even when I can't perform anymore. I want to still be involved.
Right. And that's the thing too. I think people really think about a career in dance in terms of performance, but you're still a dancer your whole life. Like once you're a dancer, you're always a dancer. And there's different roles and positions to fill within that role as a dancer, but like you're still always a dancer, and it can be a part of you forever. Like even once you're done performing, or even when your body's kind of giving up on you a little bit, or you're injured or something's going on, you're always a dancer.
Very good point. And it reminds me of, I think you saw this, the woman who was listening to Swan Lake as an older,
yes,
you know what I'm talking about? And it was just the most touching thing. She was just listening. She had dementia, I think, or she has dementia, and she's this very like elderly woman, and they just had her listening to Swan Lake, and she was doing movements with her hands and in her body, and it shows how powerful dance is. Yeah. And can be in people's lives.
Absolutely. Woo! Some deep stuff.
Yeah.
On that note, do you want to take a brief pause, Hannah?
Sure.
Take a little break?
Here's a word from our sponsor.
All right, we're back, and I've got an easy question in comparison to a few of the last ones.
Hit it on me.
Hit it on you.
Hit it on me, Fracky. Tell me what it is.
Do you have a favorite dance clothing brand?
Oh, I do. I would say it slightly has changed a little bit over the years, but I still hold true because I have so many. But I love the Yumiko leotard brand. It's just so comfy. It's so comfy.
I definitely was very much a Yumiko girl when I was younger. I'd say around that, 14, 15, kind of that age. And it was
the age when you saw the cool thing at summer intensives. Everyone was wearing their Yumikos.
Yeah, I still like Yumikos, and I do have some, but I honestly don't think I would ever necessarily purchase another one again.
That makes sense.
I have a few, and I feel like the lining rips easily on them. I'm wearing one right now underneath my clothes. And I had to re-sew the lining because it ripped kind of easily. And to me, they're just very expensive leotards, and I want something that is that expensive that I'm purchasing to really hold up well. I'm not saying it's a not good brand. That's not what I mean. But just in comparison to some other leotards that I have that I haven't had issues with. But my favorite brand over the years has actually become Elevate.
Yeah.
I really love Elevate dancewear. I love all the patterns and everything they have. That's, I think, kind of why I shifted more to Elevate over Yumiko over the last few years, because Yumiko has introduced some prints, but they're more known for just their solids, and you can mix and have different colors. But
not
Elevate has all kinds of crazy kind of prints, and even the meshes and different the actual physical style of the leotards too. I just think that there's a lot more to choose from. And
more variety.
Yeah, I just think it's a really fun company, and I've also had a really good experience too in terms of the quality.
Yeah. Yes, I would say that Yumiko is more of a thing. I would purchase it a lot more often when I was young, kind of like you. I think definitely Yumiko was more of a thing that I would buy more regularly as a young student, a young dancer. And I still like wearing them, don't get me wrong, but that is a good point. Elevate does have more variety, I would say. But these days, I've been just wearing a lot of exercise clothing. I love Lululemon pants, and just different forms of, athletic wear that isn't necessarily a leotard. That's just been my new thing. But
yeah, no, I love athletic wear too.
All right. So, Kristen, do you have a ritual before class or performance? Now, this is similar to my food question, but I know you, at school, you would come in very early and do your things, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I am a very ritualistic person.
No.
This year has been different in terms of my schedule and everything, and I'm not, unfortunately, able to typically commit to as strong of a kind of pre-class warm-up. Although I do teach two of the days. I teach private lessons in the morning, dance conditioning. So I'm typically warming up while I teach, kind of, and then I have my walk to the studio. It's a 25-minute walk. So there's different things in my morning routine that I think kind of now have in a way become part of my warm-up process. Whereas it's just different from what I used to do. But in a more normal time, or back at Mercyhurst, I definitely would allow myself to have a solid 40 to 45 minutes to warm up. And that was very important to me on days where I was either maybe running a little late, or sometimes scheduling wise, we had a class, an academic class directly before ballet, and there wasn't time to warm up. I definitely noticed a difference in myself in terms of not feeling like I necessarily am in the right headspace at the beginning of class, and my body just would never feel quite right or quite the same if I didn't get that warm up in. With that, I mean, I I really like to listen to music when I'm warming up, like with my headphones in. I mean, I would occasionally definitely talk to other dancers. It's kind of warming up can be like a social thing sometimes, just having everyone in the studio together. But I liked it more for an internal kind of moment for myself. And like I said, kind of getting in that right headspace for class. And yeah, I would do a series of, I mean, I don't need to walk you through my entire warm up, but I typically would start with some rolling out my feet and my calves, some TheraBand exercises, and then kind of some hip openers and just going into stretching and even like dynamic stretching. Occasionally I'll do a little cardio. I'll do a little cardio sometimes in the studio at NYU and no one's there. I'll run some laps. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely like pros and cons, and I'm learning more and more throughout my program now at NYU about some of actually the negatives behind stretching before class, or at least the types of stretches you do before class. So I'm trying to shift a little bit and be a little smarter about how I choose to warm up my body prior to class, but I definitely am ritualistic in it all. And I think too, like, I recommend if you're not someone who is like that in nature, like maybe try it. It's kind of nice. But at least in terms of like a warm up, I'm not saying like everything in your life has to be like a big ritual, but like we as humans are ritualistic in nature. We get up and we do things every day, like brush our teeth and make our bed and all these little things that you don't necessarily think of that you do, but they do make up like the whole routine of your day. And without those things, you'd feel really weird if someone was just like, oh yeah, no, you can't brush your teeth today, or like you can't make yourself breakfast. Just taking away those basic things and you'd feel all kinds of out of whack.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I liked learning more about that. I gotta say, like I knew it a pretty significant amount, but you definitely shed more light on it. And I actually want to try to implement more of what you're saying to my life, because I'm not good at rolling out and I need to get better at it, because I feel pain and I'm like, I don't want to, it hurts too much. But then really, am I doing myself any good? Probably not, because the lactic acid buildup is just getting worse and doesn't feel great.
Yeah, and in terms of having a ritual or a kind of a set plan, it's really great to have an after class one as well. That's something I'm not as good about, and some of that being just literally schedule wise. Like sometimes you just have to run off to the next thing and you can't necessarily take that like 10-15 minutes that would be really beneficial to you after class.
And that's where you can do your static stretching instead of the dynamic. At the end, I heard it's much better.
Yes, and your muscles are already warm. You're less likely to injure yourself, and then you don't run into the issue of like doing static stretching right before jumping. If it's within a 20-minute time frame, it limits your actual like propulsion for your jumps. So it's definitely a better time to be doing all of that, or they recommend static stretching actually. So if we're referring to, no, I was going to say, if we're referring to like a ballet class, which I feel like we've been kind of in the mindset of when we're talking about this, they say that, you know, you can do static stretching like at the end of bar and before center, because typically you're not going to be getting into your Allegro steps anyways until at least like 20 minutes into center. You're going to start with your port de bras and your tendus, and
which is probably why people implement bar stretches, right, and give you time.
Yeah, because you're already warm at that point, so you don't really run a risk of injury as much as at like the beginning of class. And like I said, you have that time, that window still to recover from your static stretching before moving into intense things like jumping. So yeah, but it's definitely like after class, also establishing some sort of routine is really great as well. But I will admit, I'm not the best at that.
It's all about, you know, seeing what works for you, what doesn't, and trying to make it a habit, even when it does get challenging time-wise. But all right, do you have anything else?
Let's see. I do have a few questions, but I'm kind of trying to see if maybe like a favorite stands out. Oh, this one I feel like can be kind of fun. What's one of your biggest pet peeves in a dance class? Like, do you have anything where you're just like, oh my goodness, during class, like it drives you crazy?
You know, I was thinking about this question a few nights ago, and I was sitting there and I was like, there's definitely something, but I haven't been in like a class with a lot of people that reminded me of it as much,
Yeah,
which is
that's
kind
fair.
of funny. But I do get frustrated when you can't hear the teacher. Like if someone's talking, I don't like talking in class. It's really hard to focus. And it's also just kind of like rude to not only like the teacher, but your classmates as well.
Agreed.
So that's probably like my biggest pet peeve. It's like you're paying for the class or whatever it is. You're paying, you're getting paid, you're just taking a class to take it. You want to be fully present in that dance class, not somewhere else chatting about who knows what. And especially if someone's getting a correction too. Like it's just rude to be talking away when you could be listening. And maybe I know teachers get really frustrated when they'll repeat themselves because it's like, well, you could have been listening to the correction or the question that was asked. And then if you just ask the same thing or do the same thing, it's frustrating and kind of a waste of time almost.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good one. I definitely get annoyed by that myself. I really don't like I get annoyed when people have like a lack of spatial awareness in class.
It's literally me though.
It low-key is you.
Yeah, literally is.
I hate when people kind of like encroach upon me in a class, like when you're at the bar and someone, granted, some classes are more packed than others. People don't understand bar etiquette if you're at a center bar or like if you're at a wall bar and they just really creep up on like behind you when there's clearly enough space, or when you come to center exercises and people are out of line and whacking you when there's not a need for that at all. Especially now, like with COVID world, we have, the tape on
The
studio
boxes.
floors, and I'm like, in a way, I'm like, that solves my problem. People can work on their spatial awareness.
To be fair though, some people just have it worse than others. Like for whatever reason, I can't walk in straight lines. I try really hard and sometimes it just doesn't work, or I'll try to be so aware of it and it's hard. But I can see the annoyance there. I really can, and I apologize.
You're good. That wasn't a dig or an at you.
I know.
It wasn't intended
but it
to
literally
be.
is. I'm that person, but don't mean to be. The last question I wanted to ask you, I know you haven't broken a bone, knock on wood, but is there any specific injury now that you have or that you had in the past that was just really hard to get rid of and like affected your dancing or your mental health? Because I know when I broke my foot and when our good friend Stacey injured her ankle, when she sprained her ankle, we were both having trouble just like feeling it would never be normal, like we wouldn't be able to dance fully again after many, many months of just, watching and doing a lot of PT. It was very frustrating as a dancer. And I just wanted to know if you had anything that stands out for you.
Honestly, I feel so fortunate to say this, but no, not really. I have had little minute injuries throughout my life, my career, and obviously plenty of aches and pains and like tweaking little things here and there. But I've never had an injury that's made me have to sit out of classes other than when I had my concussion, which was also, it didn't last for that long. So I was fortunate in that sense of I was only fully out of classes, I think, for like a week. And then I started to wean back in. So in the grand scheme of things, that's not that much. But other than that, I literally have not sat out of a single class my whole life, which I feel very, very fortunate to say. That being said, I've worked through some things. Like I had mild Achilles tendonitis back in high school. That was when I was dancing a lot. It was like during the peak of Nutcracker season. And we were doing a lot of running in gym in class. And I think actually it was the running that really did it for me because I was being so incredibly active already. And it was just like too much for my body. So, I had like little things like that, but I was able to pretty much manage them pretty well. I've gotten shin splints quite a few times, but once again with those, like I was able to, really focus on rolling out and doing the proper icing and all of those kinds of things to try to help kind of alleviate the pain of those kinds of things. I had like a snapping hip syndrome thing like back in high school too. And like little things where maybe I had to lower my leg for a little bit, or I've
like
had
more of an annoyance, not
more of
like
an annoyance. Yeah. And I've had consistent lower back pain my whole life. And, I wore like a a little like brace thing for a little while in class, but once again, yeah, it was never anything really that has like put me
drastic.
out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate with that, and I hope, honestly, like you said, knock on wood, that it continues that way for me.
I hope
don't
so
wish
too.
I don't wish an injury upon anybody. So
Yeah, right. Especially when it's like your career. You're trying to make it your career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm knocking on wood for you.
yeah, thank you. Oh, and I know, and that's the thing is I've had little weird things. Now that the more I think about it, like I think it was sophomore year or junior year, I had a weird foot thing. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, I do remember it. But that, again, it wasn't
it
like
was-
put you out.
But that's
it was
the weird thing is anytime I have, and even recently, I had a really weird thing with my knee, and it was so excruciating. Like one day I could barely walk, and then like the next day I was just like fine. I honestly think that my body heals itself
really fast.
and I do, I mean, some of that can be genetics for people, but like I do try really hard to take care of myself in terms of, doing some cross training and conditioning and just rolling out and getting enough sleep and eating relatively healthy, just like all of the general things that make up your overall health. So that is something that's important to me. And it doesn't mean that someone who got a really bad injury like isn't taking good care of themselves, but I do attribute that somewhat to my success in that like area. But yeah, I mean, it's just like sometimes I'll have something weird crop up and I'm like, oh no, I'm actually worried this is something legitimate, and then it just seems to kind of go away. So
good for you. That is very fortunate. I can't say the same necessarily.
Yeah.
But
No, I know. It's a tough thing for sure.
yeah, for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
Some people have to get surgeries, just
I
depends.
know.
It's just a lot.
It is a lot.
You can be out for sometimes a year depending on the injury. Yeah, it's just it's tough when that's what you're trying to do with your life and you can't do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was curious with you if there was one style of dance that you wish you knew or were like good at. And by that I mean, so just like not the main styles that you've trained in your whole life. Like,
yeah.
If you had to pick something, like what would you choose to do?
Since I was little, I always was very interested in tap dancing, but I never actually did it. And I'm still kicking myself for it. And maybe eventually I will take some lessons, but I just think it sounds really, really cool. Like the tapping and just the sounds that it makes on the floor and just watching people, everyone just looks like they're having so much fun. And
literally, I think the exact same thing.
It's so fun.
I took tap literally for 1 year. I think it was when I was 6 or 7. And it was one of those things where it was 45 minutes of a ballet class. And then the last 15 minutes, you throw on your tap shoes and you like walk around the room basically in your tap shoes. And I never did it again after that. And I do feel kind of regretful about that. And when I see people tap, it literally just looks like so much fun. And I want to get up and join them.
Well, and what's funny for me though is I actually was supposed to take tap at Mercyhurst, but because I broke my foot, I had to take lob on instead.
See, and I wanted to take tap too,
Yeah.
but I also wanted to take lob on, and they met at the same point.
Yeah,
And
so you had to
they
choose
were
one.
just like, "Yep, you have to pick." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, just kind of knowing the career path I wanted to go on, it felt like lob on was more applicable."
Yeah, no, it was
But-
for sure. But for me personally, I would have loved to take tap if I was able to, but I couldn't.
Totally. Yeah, I would say for me too, it would probably be tap. And then also just randomly, I'll go through phases where I wish I did like ballroom dancing or something.
Yeah, ballroom dancing. I honestly
Even like flamenco.
yeah, any of that. It's all just so beautiful.
Or even just like more cultural dances. In
Like
general.
African dance, that's so fun. I've taken a few classes in African dance, and it's so like authentic, and you really get to know like the culture if it's the right teacher and the right like musician. A lot of times there's drums that are played, and that's super fun. But there's just so much out there too.
No, there
that we just
is.
don't
And
know about.
sometimes I'm like, wow, I consider myself a dancer, but I'm so specific in my
like the stereotypical
path.
dancer.
and so like I'm curious to explore some other styles, and maybe down the road I will get a chance to do that like later in life a little bit.
So wait,
but
I'm wondering, is what we're doing concert dance? I think that's what it's categorized
yes,
as.
it's concert dance.
Yes, that's what I would say we are. What we categorize.
We're Eurocentric concert
Yep.
concert
Yep.
dance.
That's the
We're
word.
like, yeah,
The basic.
yep, pretty much.
But aside from that, there are so many cool dances out there. Cultural dances, just literally living life is like a whole dance, if we want to go that deep.
Yeah, and I like, as you know, I'm Greek, and my church and the Greek festival that we have every year.
Yeah.
They have Greek dancing at, and I never got involved with that when I was younger. And as I got a little bit older, I was kind of hitting myself, and I was like, literally, why didn't I like do the Greek dancing?
You
like,
still
through
can.
my church. I'm too old for it.
No one's
There's like
too
a cutoff.
old.
Okay, like an actual cutoff.
Somewhere
it's like
else.
high school.
Okay, well, somewhere else you can go and be a Greek dancer.
I'm like, wow, my career is dance, and I'm Greek, and I've been to Greece, and I love my Greek heritage and culture, and yet why have I never done that? You know?
Life gets busy, that's why.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think this is probably a good time to wrap things up, but Bar Talk, probably one of my favorite episodes, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Fun.
It's fun.
I'm probably honestly going to end up annoying you with some questions for the rest of the night now, just as they come to mind.
Because we're actually, like, guys, we can talk to each other in the flesh, in person. It's not like I have to give her a call or text her. I can literally just see her and talk to her.
It's very exciting. And I also want to just throw out there really quickly, so after the new year, when we were talking to you guys on our podcast, one of our episodes, I said that one of my goals for this year was to start small and take an in-person dance class. One of my biggest goals for this year, and I'm so excited because tonight I'm going to Hannah's home studio and I'm going to take a ballet class.
Yes, we're going to dance
so
together.
I am so excited to be dancing with other humans in a room, not over Zoom. I'm excited. So just had to share that with you all.
Yeah, it's so exciting for us.
Since I had laid that out a few episodes back, that it's actually happening.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. That's such a good point. I'm so excited for that. And it's in a few short hours now.
Yes.
Yay. Okay, well, everyone, enjoy your day or night or whatever time it is. And we bye for now, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening to all our
chit-chat.
Jinx.
Thanks for tuning in to Abundance. We appreciate your support. We hope to have PK'd your interest. Feel free to contact us at abundancepodcast5678@gmail.com and give us feedback on what you'd like to hear. That is abundance without parentheses. Go dance yourself silly. Bye for now.
A special thank you to Richard DiFiore for our lovely podcast tune and Matt Mellish for our cover art.